Most guys think that during the World Cup, all eyes are glued to the game. But while you're locked in on every goal, every call, and every last-second finish, a lot of women are actually watching something totally different. They're watching you. The way you react, how you treat the people around you, and how you handle the ups and downs of the match can say more about who you really are than you'd think. And some of the stuff they pick up on might genuinely surprise you. Topic 1. She notices how he handles winning and losing. Most guys assume that during the World Cup, every woman in the room is just as glued to the screen as they are. But that's rarely the full picture. While he's tracking every pass, every tackle, every goal, she's often clocking something else entirely: how he reacts to what's happening. Big tournaments have a way of dragging out real emotions, and those reactions can tell you more about a guy's character than hours of regular conversation ever could. That's why the match itself isn't always the most interesting thing going on in the room. Winning's easy. Anybody can enjoy that. It's what happens after things go sideways that really sticks with people. A missed penalty, a shady ref call, a heartbreaker in stoppage time. Any of that can flip the mood instantly. Some guys shrug it off, crack a joke, and move on. Others let the frustration take over, snapping at everyone nearby or stewing about it long after the final whistle. He might think none of that matters, but to the people watching, especially the women around him, it can feel like a sneak peek at how he deals with disappointment in real life. That doesn't mean she wants him to fake being chill or pretend he doesn't care. Quite the opposite. Genuine passion is attractive. It shows he's capable of caring deeply about something. The difference is whether that passion stays in his hands or starts running the show. It's a small distinction, but a lot of women catch it almost instantly. And it turns out the game is only the first place these patterns show up, because once other people are in the mix, even more telling behavior starts to surface. Topic 2. How he treats the people around him during the match. Once the game kicks off, something interesting starts happening. Sure, the focus is on the field, but everyone sharing the room becomes part of the experience too. A woman often pays close attention to how a guy treats the people around him when his attention is split. Does he still check in with the people beside him, or does everyone become invisible until the final whistle? Those tiny interactions can say way more than any relationship talk ever could. Picture two guys watching the exact same match. One barely looks away from the TV, gets annoyed every time someone asks him a simple question, and acts like every interruption is a personal attack. The other is just as into the game, but he still smiles when someone walks in, answers a question without making them feel dumb for asking, and remembers that the people next to him matter just as much as the score. It's not about who loves soccer more. It's about emotional awareness, and that's something people notice fast. What throws a lot of guys off is that none of this takes grand gestures. Offering someone a seat, checking if anyone needs another drink at halftime, introducing a friend who doesn't know the group, or just pulling a partner into the excitement instead of shutting her out. That stuff can completely change how the day feels. None of it steals focus from the match, but it shows something deeper. Whether a guy naturally makes people feel welcome. And as the tournament heats up, another question starts creeping in. Where does healthy passion end and obsession begin? Topic 3. The difference between passion and obsession. No doubt about it, passion is attractive. Watching someone genuinely fired up about the World Cup is contagious. The build-up before kickoff, celebrating an insane goal, arguing tactics with the guys, all of that shows energy, personality, and the ability to really care about something. Most women don't see that as a red flag. Honestly, a lot of them find it refreshing, because it shows a side of a guy that's real and unfiltered. The problem isn't the passion. It's what happens when that passion starts pushing everything else out of the way. The line between passion and obsession is thinner than most guys realize. A passionate fan can enjoy the match without forgetting the people around him. An obsessed fan acts like the whole world has to bend around 90 minutes of soccer. He gets impatient over the smallest interruption, cancels plans without a second thought, and treats anyone not equally invested like they're ruining his experience. From his side, he's just locked in on the game, From hers, it can look like he can't balance what actually matters when emotions run high. One of the most respected qualities in a guy is knowing how to give something his full attention without letting it take him over. Think about the people everyone loves having around during big games. They cheer loud, celebrate every goal, throw themselves into it. But they can also laugh at themselves, keep some perspective, and remember the tournament ends eventually. Staying grounded like that leaves a way bigger impression than people realize. And once the pressure of a match hits its peak, another trait starts standing out even more clearly. How a guy carries himself when the stakes feel massive. Topic 4. Confidence under pressure is surprisingly attractive. The final minutes of a close match have a way of exposing what everyday life usually keeps hidden. Scores tied, tensions climbing. Every decision feels like it could change everything. In moments like that, a woman's attention often shifts from the field to the guy sitting next to her. Not because she cares less about the game, but because pressure has this unique way of surfacing habits that usually stay buried. How he reacts when he can't control the outcome quietly reveals how he handles pressure everywhere else in life. Some guys get visibly anxious, treating every mistake like a personal failure. Others stay locked in without letting the stress take over. They celebrate when there's something to celebrate, take setbacks in stride, and get that even the best teams can't control every bounce of the ball. That composure doesn't read as a lack of passion. If anything, it signals confidence. It shows his emotions are real, but they're not calling the shots. Here's the interesting part. Confidence under pressure rarely comes from pretending not to care. It comes from caring a lot while still staying steady enough to keep perspective. A guy who can laugh off a bad break, give props to a great play, even from the other team, and enjoy the experience regardless of the outcome usually leaves a stronger impression than the loudest guy in the room. Those reactions hint at real emotional resilience, and that's a trait that carries way beyond sports. But as the match rolls on and more people pile into the room, another quality starts showing up almost effortlessly. The way a guy naturally shapes the mood without even trying. If you're vibing with this kind of breakdown on human behavior and relationships, now's a great time to subscribe to the channel. New videos dive into the subtle habits, mindset shifts, and social dynamics that can help you understand yourself and the people around you a little better, so you're not missing what's often hiding in plain sight. Topic 5. The way he leads the group without trying too hard. One of the most overlooked parts of the World Cup has nothing to do with the actual match. It's what happens in the living room, at the backyard cookout, or at the local sports bar before the game even starts. Every group has that one person who naturally sets the tone. And funny enough, women often clock that person before anyone else does. Leadership isn't always the loudest voice in the room. More often, it's the quiet confidence of someone who makes everyone feel at ease without demanding the spotlight. Think about the guy who greets people as they walk in, makes sure everyone's got a spot to sit, introduces guests who haven't met, and keeps the vibe light even when opinions clash. He's not trying to impress anybody, yet people naturally gravitate toward him. Now compare that to the guy who dominates every conversation, acts like only his opinion counts, or turns every disagreement into a competition. Both might know the game equally well, but they leave completely different impressions, because real leadership gets measured by the vibe someone creates, not by how much attention he soaks up. What's wild is that these moments usually happen without the guy even realizing he's being watched. Nobody announces they're sizing up his character, but the small choices add up over the course of the day. How he includes people, handles different personalities, and keeps the group connected quietly, communicates confidence, generosity, and emotional security. Those things stick out way more than a perfect prediction about the score. And once strong opinions start clashing, which they always do during the World Cup, another side of a guy's character comes into focus: how he handles disagreement when everyone thinks they're right. Topic 6. How he handles disagreement. If there's one thing the World Cup guarantees, it's arguments. Every match sparks debate about the ref, the coach's calls, the starting lineup, whether a guy should have shot instead of passing. Honestly, those conversations are part of what makes the tournament fun. But while most guys are focused on winning the argument, a lot of women are watching something else entirely. How he acts when someone pushes back on his opinion. That tells you way more than whether his prediction was right. Some guys treat every disagreement like a fight they need to win. They talk over people, raise their voice, brush off other perspectives, or refuse to admit when someone else has a point. Others approach the same conversation with curiosity. They stand by their opinion, but they also know how to listen, laugh, and appreciate a different take without taking it personally. Funny enough, those guys usually come off way more confident. Real confidence doesn't need to dominate the room. It stays calm because it's not threatened by a different opinion. One of the clearest signs of maturity is knowing that respect doesn't vanish just because people disagree. Emotions run high during the World Cup, and that's exactly why these moments say so much. A guy who can stay composed, enjoy the back and forth, and walk away from the conversation with the same good energy he had going in, creates a vibe people actually want to be part of. That kind of steadiness sticks with people. And once the debates die down and the excitement fades into the background, something even more subtle starts standing out. Just being able to enjoy the moment instead of constantly chasing the next play. Topic 7. His ability to enjoy the moment. One of the biggest misconceptions about the World Cup is that enjoying it means gluing your eyes to the screen every second. But a lot of women notice something different. They notice whether a guy is actually enjoying the whole experience or just powering through the time between kickoffs. The tournament is way more than 90 minutes of soccer. It's shared meals, conversations that drift from sports to life, random laughs, and memories people remember long after they've forgotten the final score. A guy who gets that usually leaves a lasting impression without even trying. There's a real difference between someone who's fully present and someone who's mentally trapped inside the game. Guy number 1 celebrates every goal, argues the big plays, feels every swing of the match, but he still looks up when someone tells a funny story or asks him something. He can switch gears without treating every interruption like a disaster. Guy number 2 can be physically in the room all night and still be somewhere else the whole time. Ironically, he can show up to every gathering and still miss out on the stuff everyone will be talking about for years. Being present isn't about caring less about soccer. It's about realizing that some of the best parts of the World Cup happen away from the ball. Think about the traditions families build around the tournament, the friendly beef between neighbors, or the conversations that keep going long after the match ends. Those moments build connection, and women notice the guys who naturally add to that vibe. Because at the end of the day, people rarely remember who won. They remember how someone made them feel. And that's exactly why the smallest, almost invisible moves can end up speaking louder than every wild celebration combined. Topic 8. The little things he thinks nobody sees. They say character shows up in the little things, and the World Cup gives it plenty of chances to prove that. Most guys figure that if nobody comments on a small gesture, it probably slid under the radar. But that's rarely true. Women often catch the details that don't ask for recognition, the habits that show up naturally when a guy isn't trying to impress anyone. Those quiet moments hit harder because nobody's performing them for applause. Could be as simple as offering up the last slice instead of grabbing it, checking if everyone's got a drink before halftime wraps, helping clean up without being asked, or making sure the person who doesn't follow soccer still feels included. None of that costs money, status, or any real effort. But put it all together, and it paints a pretty clear picture of generosity, thoughtfulness, and emotional maturity. It shows that kindness isn't something he switches on when it's convenient. It's just part of who he is. The interesting part is these habits usually only show up when a guy assumes nobody's evaluating him. That's exactly why they carry so much weight. Grand gestures can be planned out, but everyday behavior is way harder to fake. A woman might forget the exact score of a wild match, but she'll often remember how someone made the people around him feel all day. And once all those tiny moments stack up, they start answering a much bigger question. What does the World Cup actually reveal about a guy's real personality? Topic 9. What the World Cup reveals about his real personality. By the end of the tournament, something becomes pretty clear. The World Cup doesn't build a guy's personality. It just shines a brighter light on whatever's already there. The excitement, the pressure, the celebrations, the heartbreaks, they all act like a magnifying glass. Traits that might fly under the radar in everyday life suddenly become impossible to miss. Patience gets more visible. So does generosity, humility, confidence, and sometimes frustration or ego. That's why a few weeks of soccer can reveal more than months of normal life. Same goes outside of soccer, honestly. People assume character shows up in life's biggest moments, but more often it comes out through repeated, everyday choices. How a guy reacts when things don't go his way. How he treats people when he's distracted. Whether he listens as much as he talks. How he handles excitement without losing perspective. Those patterns don't just disappear once the final whistle blows. The World Cup just brings them into sharper focus, because emotions run higher and the chances to react keep coming. Maybe that's the real takeaway here. While millions of people are watching the same match, everyone's also quietly telling a story about themselves through how they experience it. Without saying a word, a guy shows what he values, how he handles pressure, and the kind of presence he brings into other people's lives. At the end of the day, the most memorable performance might not belong to the players on the field. It might belong to the version of himself he chooses to show when he thinks nobody's watching. Conclusion. Next time you're watching a World Cup match, remember the game isn't the only thing happening. Every celebration, every frustrating moment, every conversation, every small decision is another chance to show what kind of guy you are. The habits that leave the strongest impression usually aren't the loud ones. They're the quiet choices that show confidence, respect, emotional control, and real character. So here's something worth sitting with. If someone watched you through an entire World Cup match, what would they learn about you without you ever saying a word? Which of the things we talked about today sounds the most like you? And is there one you'd want to work on before the next big game? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd genuinely love to hear which point hit home for you. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. There's a lot more coming that digs into psychology, relationships, confidence, and the subtle behaviors that shape how people see us every day. Until next time, thanks for watching.